Hey everyone, I'm just doing a quick intro on this episode today. It was a super special episode for me and I'm just really excited to share it. I got to interview Jimmy Pattison and, he really needs no introduction, but, I just got to say, he was so wonderful to spend a few hours with. He was open, he was welcoming, he treated me like I was the only person in the world. He didn't rush me out. He walked me around his office, showed me his wall of fame of all the people he's met in all his years in business. He showed me his general ledger from his first day in business, first month and first year in business, and then walked me through to where he is today, which was just an amazing journey and educational experience for myself. So I just want to say I was on cloud nine this whole time. I left there, he just taught me so much. I just left there so pumped and excited, and I'm really excited for this episode and to have spent that time with him. It was amazing, and I hope you enjoy it. It is fairly YPO focused, but there's a lot of other nuggets in there as well. Enjoy. All right, well, I just wanted to say thanks for doing this today. I as the incoming chapter chair for YPO British Columbia, I've been spending a lot of time kind of going back in history because I'm the learning chair now, and in September I start my role as the chair. So I wanted to just kind of go, what is YPO about? What does it mean? And you've been so gracious and generous with your time with YPO. I've seen you speak at a number of events over the last 10 years. I've been a member for about 14 years. And so I thought, we have this new member dinner every year too. We sort of bring the new members in, tell them about what YPO is about. And every time I'm there, I'm like, I wish Jimmy was here to talk about it, because the way you've always spoken about YPO has been so passionate and energetic. And so I called you up, and here we are. So again, I would just really appreciate you saying yes to this. What I wanted to know is, just kind of going back, you joined YPO in 1964. It was basically a 4-year-old chapter at that point. I'm just kind of curious, what brought you to YPO? How did you find out about it, and why did you join it?
I found out about it from a fellow from Toronto, a car dealer. He was out here at General Motors. I was working for General Motors, Beau McLean, Beaumac, down 615 Burrard Street. And I was working there, and this fella came out. General Motors brought 4 or 5 dealers out to see how we were doing things, and because we were doing quite well. I was working for this company, Bull McDonald, and their business I was the general manager at the time, and so General Motors sent out about 10 people, all car dealers from Toronto, to see how we were doing things. And this one guy, dealer, after we were all through a couple of days of talking, said, Jimmy, you should belong to YPO. And I said, what's YPO? He explained what it was. And so he said, I'll give you the names of some members here, and you can call them. So I did, and they didn't want me in.
All right.
Because there was 2 car dealers. Duick was one,
yeah,
and the other guy was Evan Wolf, and they did not want me in YPO.
They didn't want a competitor in the...
Well, there was 2 car dealers, and they didn't want it anymore.
Oh, wow.
As time went by, I got a couple people here. One was Ralph Cunningham, who was a drugstore guy, and the other guy was my landlord for my body shop.
Okay.
And they then supported me. This is over a period of a year or so, to get in. And I got in.
They vouched for you and said this guy's...
They vouched for me. Initially, there was 2 car dealers in, and they didn't want me in. and Duix was one of them. But anyways, time went by. This Cunningham, the drugstore, very solid BC family, and he was sort of a leader, and so he got me in.
That's great.
And with a couple other people's help. The other guy was my landlord who had the 7-Up franchise.
Oh, okay.
And that's how I got in.
Excellent.
And Maureen Chant, my secretary here, she's been with me 60 years.
Yeah.
And so as time went by, she wound up putting on YPO events as I got involved with it. And I went down to South Africa at meetings and traveled all over the world. We had a lot. The good news was the big break that I got was BC was not in the Canadian chapters.
Right.
It was in Washington, Oregon, California, and Hawaii.
Okay. That's a good group to be with, though.
So this group was right off the bat had these special meetings that I'm sure you still have. And I'd go to Hawaii to these meetings. I'd go to California. I'd go to Palm Springs at different places, have different meetings there because it was all American. We were the only Canadian chapter.
Oh, really? I don't think I knew that history because Canada is its region now.
Oh, Canada. BC was in the Washington, Oregon, Northern California, and Hawaii district of YPO. And I was dealing with all Americans. And it was that group, a guy by the name of Bob Halliday with Boise, Idaho. He came from Boise, Idaho, and there was a lumber company called Boise something or other. And I got the vision of doing what I'm doing today from YPO chapter in British Columbia that belonged to Washington, Oregon, Northern California, and Hawaii.
Wow. So you were quite involved, when you started out, you got involved and traveled and went to all these...
Oh, never missed a meeting.
Yeah.
If there was one in Hawaii, I went. One in Washington, I never missed a meeting. And Maureen Chant, when we had the meetings here, she helped me put on the meetings here as time went by. It's because I became, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for YPO.
That's amazing. And it's really interesting that you mentioned Maureen because that's one of the things we think about when we were talking about the education chairs is they have to have a fantastic partner or EA to help because you're putting on a mini wedding almost. When you have 100, 200 people, you have to have great help around you. So that's awesome.
So, but Maureen's been with me 60 years.
Yeah.
And we started at 18th and Canby in a 3-pump gas station, and she worked in the parts department. I didn't hire her, and that's how we got started.
Well, I got to say, in my dealings with her for this meeting, she was one of the most efficient people I've ever met with, asking me questions before I thought of them.
And she's 83 years old now.
There's a 24-hour rule in YPO, right? You have to answer or respond to someone within 24 hours. That's sort of the etiquette. And she's more like less than 2 hours. Like she's ahead of me. It was great. So she was wonderful to work with. Can you tell me more about that? You said your business wouldn't be the same or wouldn't be here if it wasn't for YPO.
I was a car dealer.
Right.
I can show you the picture. We had a 3-pump gas station and a 2-car showroom. And I got started there. The reason I got started there is because the General Motors dealer, he was going under. He hadn't been making money. And this opportunity came up. And General Motors gave me the opportunity to take this over. And so that's where I started. And then along came YPO, which I belonged to, and my landlord of the gas station that we had was this fella, Abe Gray. And we had a body shop and he had the 7-Up franchise, and he was in YPO.
And you had this idea come out from a meeting about how to structure your business, or?
Well, no, but when you go to YPO meetings, people talk about this, and I happen to be, because we were in the American group.
Yeah.
I was the guys that came to the meeting when you put the court of the region together at these meetings in Hawaii or Portland, Oregon. All these guys had been exposed to conglomerates.
Right.
There was nobody that had one, but they were talking about them all the time. And so I got this idea of, well, I don't have to be just a car dealer. And so we got into leasing, and then we got into radio, and then from radio we got into groceries. And so one thing led to another to where we are today.
So YPO sort of, made you think about other possibilities, like sort of broaden your...
No, YPO gave me the exposure to the guys in the States that were into conglomerates, like Boise, Boise Cascade was a conglomerate.
Right.
And this guy, Boise, Bob Halliday, his name was, he was a very strong guy in YPO. In fact, when I got going, I put him on our board.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Now, what does it mean to you? And, I kind of, like I said, I go back. Like, what does it mean to you to be a YPOer? And one of the things I think a lot about is, even I go to this meeting, we've never met. You said yes, you made it really easy. I've got so many stories about that through YPO, where you've hosted forum groups for people that have, wanted to talk with you, and you've been so gracious and generous with your time. I had a really neat story about a new member. I talk to all new members that come on board. And I said, just make sure you reach out and talk to people, and, phone somebody if you need help. And I talked to him about a month later to check in, and I said, how's it going? He goes, well, it's really strange. I phoned Maureen at Pattison Group, and she said, well, I have an opening tomorrow at 1, just kind of a fluke, if you can come in. He came in, and I said, are you kidding me? Like, such a great impression for this new member that got to speak with you, said that, you had all the time in the world for him. You didn't rush him out of the office. So I was just like, wow, this guy really gets YPO. And
we would not be here today if it wasn't for YPO in Vancouver.
And what do you think that, what sort of should a member sort of embody or model for that? Like, what's your advice to members to be a great YPOer? Because you got help, obviously, or got...
Well, you got to participate. Right. You got to go to the meetings. And, you can go to the meetings and be there, or you can get involved in the organization. And when they ask you to do something, we did it. Maureen Chant, she spent more time at putting on YPO stuff than I ever did. And because it changed our lives.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And I love what you just said about going to the meetings. Now, because the chapter and the region have changed so much, there's a lot of experiences that people get that are, they're either in a forum or they go to the BC meetings. But what I heard from you, which I thought was wonderful, is this outside the chapter, international events. That's not a lot of people go to those because it's not on the radar as much as it would have been back then. But
listen, I went to Greece with YPO.
Yeah.
They had a special meeting there in Athens, and I went. And they'd have them in Hawaii, they'd have them but I went to every YPO meeting I could go to because it changed my life. And all I knew was selling used cars and new cars, and here was a whole new world. And I went for it.
Excellent. And it just resonates so great. It's what you put into it is what you get out of it, for sure.
Oh, it's like everything else. The more you put into something, the more you get out of it. But I remember going to South Africa.
Wow.
There was a meeting.
Yeah.
And I went to it from here. And but I never I was very active because it changed my life. I learned all the time. And we would not be here today if it wasn't for YPO in Vancouver.
Yeah, that's excellent. I wouldn't mind shifting to your business a little bit as well, but I would like to just understand too, like if you look back on some pivotal moments on someone that's helped you in YPO, you mentioned Boise already, but is there other moments that you can think of that, maybe you, and of course we don't want to breach any confidentiality or anything like that, but that sort of were pivotal and I had to make a call or I had to phone somebody in YPO and they helped me, because this is what we see a lot within YPO is somebody got me out of a jam. I needed to make a phone call.
I can tell you the exact moment. I was in YPO and there was a chapter meeting and it was in Victoria. And the meeting was there and it was in a hotel. And I was just walking through the lobby, but there was a bar sort of adjacent. And as I was walking past it, this other guy from YPO said, we've managed to control, he was talking to this guy, and I just heard him say, we got control with the company and we had less than 2% stock.
Yeah. That perks your ears up, right? How did you do that?
I never forgot it. And I thought, well, my gosh. And I knew the family. I knew the company.
Yeah.
And they said they'd got public company listed in Toronto, and they got control, he said, with only 2% of the stock. So, boy, I got Marina into it, down looking at public companies, getting the annual report.
Right.
And looking at the shareholders and seeing if there's anything, and by golly, we got started with a public company that unfriendly in Neon Products.
Okay.
And it was Neon Products, public company listed in Toronto, and the fellow's father was was with the bank and a director of the bank at the time. But anyway, I started to do in fact, we've got somewhere in here, those red books, there'll be pictures of the newspaper articles where we tried to take and did get control of the company in an unfriendly takeover.
Really? And that was all from
from
walking by the bar at YPO
I was
conference.
walking through it to go to where I was going, and this fellow, I won't name his name, but he was a good YPOer, and he said, we got control of the company and we only had 2%. And they named the company. I knew the company.
Yeah.
And I went after the company and got it.
Excellent. That's great. That's so great. And now, I looked at your website. I love your website, by the way. It's just fascinating, the Pattison Group, and how you put all the different businesses on there. Some numbers on the website. $12 billion in sales, 50,000 plus employees. And so it sounds like the decision to structure the way that you do business is acquiring businesses mostly. Like, have you started a business from scratch?
Not one.
Not one. And that was...
Wrong.
Okay.
My leasing company.
Oh, out of the auto.
Car leasing.
Yes, okay.
And the day I went into business, I always gave priority to the leasing company. Okay. And we started with one car, and today we have over 30,000 vehicles on lease. Unreal. We're the largest private company in Canada in the lease business.
Unreal.
Car and truck.
I think the other thing I've just noticed about you is all the time is sort of a positive can-do attitude, and I'm just really curious about that as a parent. I've got 4 young kids, and there's sort of this nature versus nurture discussion all the time, and you always seem to have a smile on your face, quick to smile. Like, where do you think that came from? I think it's a great trait.
Well, I just have been very blessed. I've been very blessed. I was an only child. We didn't have any money, our family, but that didn't matter. I couldn't have had better parents. And I've just been very grateful to the good Lord for my health and my family, that I had the mother and father that I had, that we came to Vancouver, that I got into YPO, all the things that I had Maureen all these years.
Yeah.
I couldn't have had a better wife. My wife right now is 93 years old, and I've been married 71 years.
Unbelievable. That's fantastic.
I've been married 71 years to the same wife.
Yeah, that's great. And so it sounds like you're just very grateful and have a lot of gratitude. So happiness comes from gratitude.
Well, I don't know much about that. All I know is that I couldn't have had better parents. The only thing we didn't have money. We didn't own a house. We lived at 4893 Quebec Street. I went to Brock School at 32nd in Maine, and we rented the house, $25 a month, furnished.
There's a new member in our chapter, and her business is called Rent It Furnished, so she'll be happy to hear that you got to get to $25 furnished.
No, the house was furnished.
Unbelievable.
And that's what we paid rent.
Yeah. The other thing I noticed about your business, which I thought was kind of fun, because you have, some amazing brands or companies, but there's this kind of fun streak I noticed on your website, Ripley's, Guinness Book of World Records, Great Wolf Lodge. How did those come about? I just find those really fun business.
Well, let's start with the Guinness. The first one of that group was Ripley's Believe It or Not. I got into that. I was running Expo 86.
Okay.
Which was, you probably weren't born before that.
No, I was. I took my first girlfriend ever on the bus to Expo 86.
Okay, well, I was in the office. It was a Sunday afternoon. I'd been to church, and I was gone down to this. It wasn't built. We were in the process of building it. I didn't come into my office for 3 years. I worked right on the site. And I was down there Sunday afternoon, and the phone rang. I just picked it up, and the guy says, I'd like to speak to Jim Pattison. I said, well, it is Jim Pattison. Well, he says, I just want to tell you, you should look at buying the worst run company in America. I said, and what's the name of it? He says, Ripley's Believe It or Not. And I said, well, why do you say that? He says, well, I live in Victoria, and I'm the franchisee in a small town in Oregon for Ripley's Believe It or Not. And it's the worst run company. And you should buy it. And I'm running the World's Fair at that time.
Put some more on your plate.
So I phoned up my right-hand guy, Bill Sleeman, his name was, who used to be my boss at General Motors when I had a car GM franchise. I phoned him up and I said, go take a look at what this fella's talking about. So he flew down to Oregon, looked at this place, and it was a Ripley's Believe It or Not. And then I said, well, go look at how many do they have? They had 8. And I said, well, go look at the 8 of them. And he just flew around. One was in San Francisco. One was in Niagara Falls. One was in Florida. Anyway, he went to them. He says, Jimmy, the guy's right. They're really badly run. So I phoned the guy up. And I said, would you be interested in selling He said, I would. And we bought the company.
That's great. And
that's how we got into Ripley's.
And was Guinness closely related to
No,
that business?
not
at
at
all?
all.
Just completely separate.
Now, Guinness World Records, I was sitting in my office here one weekend. Again, it was a weekend. I got a call from a guy from New York. and said, Jimmy, I hear Guinness World Records could be bought, and I think you should look at it. So I took my right-hand guy at the time, and I sent him over to London, headquartered in London, and talked to the president, and he said we would consider an opportunity to sell the company. So I flew over the next weekend, and we shook hands on a deal, and we bought the company.
That's great. I see the books on your shelves here, and I just have to tell you a quick story. So my parents used to give me the Guinness Book of World Records for Christmas every year.
Yeah.
And it was always one of the first things that I would open because I could recognize it wrapped.
Yeah.
Same shape and size. But I would spend the rest of Christmas morning quoting everything from the book. Hey, Dad, did you know the guy with the longest fingernails is like 6 feet long? Or, hey, Mom, the tallest person is 8'2" or whatever. And then, so they started hiding the book and giving it to me at the end so I could get through my other Christmas gifts. And now we give it to my son now, and he does the same thing. He's just flipping through it. It's a fascinating business. So thanks for keeping it going.
Well, oh heck, we make money.
Yeah.
Our headquarters is London. And then I moved some offices over to New York. And no, they weren't in as time went by, we put Guinness into the U.S., Australia, and China. We got offices in China, Guinness World Records.
Yeah. We
started it there. Japan, we put an office in Japan.
We're going to have to figure out how to get YPO to break a world record. We'll have to think about that one. It'd be great.
You figure it out, and we'll put it in the book.
Yeah, that's great. Now, the other one I wanted to talk about was Great Wolf Lodge. We've got a lot of friends that drive down to the one in Oregon. I know you have the Canadian, I believe you have the Canadian rights.
Yeah, we only have one, and there's only one in Canada, the Great Wolf Lodge in Niagara Falls.
Right, and so I just thought I'd ask, is there any plans in Western Canada or idea? Or...
There is. We've looked at it. We can't make the numbers work.
Yeah.
We haven't been able to make the numbers work to get a decent return on invested capital. Now we're doing fine in Niagara Falls, and we built it, and it's been very successful, but we haven't been able to duplicate a proper hotel, well built, well done, in the right location, with numbers that we believe that we can get a decent return on invested capital.
Right. It's pretty tough with real estate prices and everything. In
well,
Vancouver.
it's construction. We had a place lined up on. Our guys wanted to go to Whistler and put one up there, and that was fine. We even bought the land, which we still own, but we couldn't make the numbers work.
Yeah. Well, I hope to see one out here or Calgary or something one day. That would be great. It's a fun experience.
We'll put another one in, but it's an expensive proposition, and you've got to get good revenue, and the prices are very high, and I just didn't. We can't make the numbers work with the return that we're looking for, with the return on invested capital.
Right, makes sense. Now, I also noticed that, it's a question that I had, but it's right on that wonderful poem there about failure. There was thing like, don't worry about failure, worry about aiming too low.
Yeah.
And how has that shaped your,
well, that's
your
what,
mindset?
I believe in that. I believe in, we've had lots of failures, but it didn't stop us from keeping going. The big risk is to make sure you got enough money to keep going if you fail. I mean, I just got back from a trip in Texas just this 2 days ago, looking at a major investment for us in Texas, and I'm not there because it's a big investment for us, and I'm not satisfied we can get a ROIC on it, that would be satisfactory.
Yeah. And that's your major indicator. I've heard you mention that a number of times, the ROIC. It's your formula.
Our religion here is return on invested capital.
Yeah. And if that doesn't work, you're not moving ahead.
We don't go.
Yeah. That's great.
And we measure everything on return on invested capital.
Yeah.
It's not what the volume is. It isn't what the percentage is on sales. It's everything is the return on invested capital.
Now, the other thing I've noticed about on your website is the businesses have really seemed to compound in growth in the last, 6 to 10 years even. And what do you attribute that to? Are those just great bets? Are those, the numbers, the way that they're shown on a bar chart are really impressive about the growth?
We're in the food business, which we've grown. We started with one car dealership. We have 26 car dealerships now. We started with one leased car. Today we got over 30,000 in Canada. And we started in the States now. Our philosophy is grow.
Yeah. And you don't seem to sell very often either. Do you?
No, we don't.
No.
Now, we have sold the odd one, a company over the years, and one of them was involved in sugar, and I'm getting out of I didn't want to be in the sugar business, and it was a good company, nothing wrong with it, but I didn't want to keep growing a business that was heavily involved in sugar.
Yeah. And I noticed on your website it's pretty loud and clear that you're focused on climate change and really...
Well, it's a religion with us around here that we've got, and we're in the coal business.
Yeah, yeah.
We have had a wonderful company, West Shore Terminals, all coal.
Yeah.
And it's been very successful. We've had it a long time, good return on invested capital, public company. And but we have got to transition that company out of things that are not good for the environment, and we've just made a deal. We just made a huge deal to start over time to ship potash out of Saskatchewan and convert the terminal from coal, which we've now made a deal, signed, sealed, but nothing happening yet, because we've got to transition the terminal to handle potash, and we're going to take a piece of the terminal, and it's been just announced in the last 4 or 5 weeks that we're going to convert a portion of the terminal to potash. And that's a big move for us. And now we got to find other things. But we got customers from the States and customers in BC and Alberta that have been coal customers for years and years and years with us. Mm-hmm. And we want to do the right thing by them.
Right.
And by the same thing, we've got to get to be more, we got to be in things more favorable to the climate.
Right. And what does that look like to you for other business owners that are either starting out or have a mature business already? Like, what's your advice to them? Because I think this is all on all our minds.
Well, I'm not giving anybody advice. I'm trying to do my own thing here. Get out of anything. Like, we've had opportunities come to us I normally would have bought, but it was too unfriendly to the environment. And we've turned it down. I wouldn't have done it. I didn't, because we went in the coal business, shipping thermal coal. Mm-hmm. And there's two kinds of coal. There's the kind of coal that you can't make steel without it, and then there's the other kind that we have both, but we've got to concentrate on the coal that is not friendly to the climate.
Yeah, that's great. Now, the other thing I was curious about is, I know you've said it a couple times, you don't like giving advice, but I mean, if you're thinking about passing on some wisdom to somebody that's, again, starting out or has bought their first business and maybe wants to emulate some of the successes that you've had, what would that advice look like? Like what?
Tell the truth.
Tell the truth.
Don't lie. Don't cheat. When you make a mistake, own up. And but always be honest. My dad and mother and I taught me that from the time, and we always went to church. They taught us in church to do the right thing, and my dad and mother taught me that, and I've made a lot of mistakes, but not one of them is lying about something.
Yeah.
I may not have told the truth, but it wasn't. I didn't know it wasn't the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
If you know what I mean.
Absolutely. Yeah, I didn't mean to get it wrong.
Yeah.
That's great. The other thing is about, you have this work ethic that is sort of unparalleled, I would say. You seem to really enjoy what you're doing still. I've never heard you talk about retiring. Where does that come from? That work ethic of just
bank debt.
Bank debt. not done paying it off yet.
I got lots of loans. I got to keep running.
Yeah. But
now, I like going to work in the morning.
Yeah, well, you just
well,
seem
Maureen's she's 63 years old, and she's been with me since she was 23 years old. She's 83 years old.
Yeah.
She's been with me 60 years. She likes coming to work too.
And how do you do that? Like that's almost unheard of, that someone works with someone that long. How do you?
No, but she likes what we do.
Yeah.
I mean, she's the last airplane we bought. She's decided that she went to New York and bought the Falcon 900 we got there. She's bought all the airplanes. She runs Frank Sinatra's compound. She built the boat that we have down here, and she built it down in Louisiana somewhere, and I had nothing to do with it except pay for it.
Yeah, yeah. She's like, I hope you like the color.
Oh yeah, no, she called the shot all the way on that.
That's fantastic.
Had a model and then worked from a model.
Yeah, so she's having fun.
No, but she's been with me 60 years and started. I think she started with us at $2 an hour or something like that.
Yeah, unreal. And now the structure of the business that you've created, is that something you would do it all over again the same way? Would you, if you were to start again?
Would I do things different? Absolutely. There's a lot of things I'd do different, but not the structure that we got. It's worked well.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. I think the last thing I just wanted to sort of touch on is, back to YPO for a minute. That's the reason we kind of came here. But, I'm trying not to say advice because you're so great about just living and sort of modeling the behavior. But, what does it mean to you to be a YPOer? What does that mean? And what should you be doing?
It means to me, I'm so grateful to YPO because the YPO, not only did I learn a lot, I wouldn't be doing what I was doing if it wasn't for YPO. Number two is that a YPOer, when I was on the edge of not making it, flew up. I took over this public company, and the banks called my loan over one of the directors of the bank, the Royal Bank. I went after his company, and he got the bank to call my loan.
Mm.
And this guy from YPO, and I paid them off, but he flew up and made an appointment with me to go to Toronto to meet with the Toronto Dominion Bank. And because he was a big customer in Canada with the TD Bank, he got me the money to pay the call.
Unreal.
YPOer.
And did you know him well? Did you know that way? Yeah.
Well, he's a guy that I got to know in YPO.
Yeah.
He, when I went to all these meetings, he was one of, Bob Halliday was his name, and he was the number 2 guy in a big company in the States, and I went to one of his lectures.
Okay.
And it wasn't a lecture. You sit down like this, and there was about 8 or 9 guys.
Yeah.
No women at that time. And I learned from him. And he was the guy that when I got into trouble, I phoned for help. And he flew up and was the deciding and casting vote for me not to lose the control of the public company that I took private.
Unreal. So that would have been a terrible...
I wouldn't be here today if it hadn't been for YPO, number 1, doing what I'm doing, and number 2, he came up. It was because I was running I was taking a public company and using it, the stock, to trade it, and he flew up when I didn't take the people I'd taken the company over from off the board. Yeah. And they didn't forgive me for that, but I left them there. But then when I got in trouble, they voted against me.
Okay.
To throw me out. But the deciding and casting vote was this guy, Bob Halliday from YPO. He flew up in his own airplane to come to the meeting and voted with me. And then when the annual meeting came, I had enough control that I threw the other guys off the board.
And regained control.
Or I wouldn't be.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here today.
That's excellent.
So that's YPO.
Yeah.
A relation. Then, but the good news with that, he got into trouble in a coal mine down in the Carolinas, and he got into trouble and needed some money fast. He flew up, and I went down and endorsed a note for him with the Bank of Montreal and helped him out when he got into trouble.
Oh, that's just amazing.
And his name was Bob Halliday, and one of the smartest guys I ever met.
So you returned the favor.
So I had the opportunity. And Maureen Chance, she's involved in all that. She made the reservations and to get him here, made the appointment with the bank to help him and all of that in Canada.
Yeah. So be helpful, get involved, say yes.
No, but it's the people you meet.
Yeah.
The people that I met at times were the best friends I had.
Yeah.
They're mostly all dead now.
Yeah. And how are you involved at all much today? Or are you in a forum or anything like that? Are you still involved in YPO?
No, I haven't seen an invitation to go to a deal for a long time.
Okay. We'll make sure you get back on the invite
But I've
list.
been traveling a lot too, so no, I'm a supporter of YPO. Then you got that second group. What do you call that?
It's YPO and YPO Gold.
Yeah, but they didn't call it that.
It used to be called WPO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I joined that.
Yeah.
And that's because I hadn't heard this other deal.
Yeah, they just changed the name a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And just because the chapters get so huge, they have to have a kind of a break in ages.
Oh, sure.
Otherwise, it'd be a 300-person
Oh, yeah.
chapter. Couldn't hold an event.
So that world deal. And no, I went to meetings down in, I told you, in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Yeah. That's so great to hear, because I didn't know that, because of course I wasn't in YPO then, but to hear how much value you've gotten out of it, how much you were really involved.
Oh, I was involved.
And so that's the value, is you got involved and went and showed up and met great people that have helped you.
Not only that, when we had the meetings here in Vancouver, Maureen Chat used to do all the work with the putting up the loudspeaker system, and
Yeah.
we'd arrange the place, the hotel, and she would put the whole meeting on.
Yeah.
I'm talking, as I told you, it wasn't Canadians. It was all Washington, Oregon, Hawaii, and Northern California.
That's just, I'm so happy that you've brought that up, because our chapter really doesn't mingle with those other regions anymore. So that whole chapter now is called I think it's the Pacific Northwest chapter, where it's got Washington, Oregon, and Northern California in it. And I mean, we don't really interact with those chapters much. We should do more of that.
I wouldn't be here today without it.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Because I wasn't going to learn what I learned from the guys in Alberta.
Yeah.
Or BC.
Yeah.
But it was those guys out of California that were getting involved in conglomerates.
Yeah.
And talking about it is what got me interested in conglomerates.
Just thinking bigger, opening up.
No, but going into business you know nothing about.
Yeah.
We're in 20 businesses. We're in 20 different industries today in this company.
Yeah.
And the only thing I knew anything about was cars.
Yeah. Yeah, you're into lots of different industries.
Now I know a lot of things about a lot of things.
Yeah.
But it all came, we took cars, and then from cars we went to radio, and the radio we went to cars, leasing, radio, groceries. And then from there we went on.
It might be just a coincidence, but you've really picked industries that are, I don't know if the recession proof, but recession resistant, like food. Cars can go up and down, but they.
Well, I knew that business.
Yeah, they're always necessary. So, was that by design? Do you think you go after those ones that you knew would?
No, I went after business that weren't capital intensive. I didn't have the money.
Right. So you couldn't buy a company.
So I had to do everything that didn't take capital. Now that was the first 20 years. As after that, when we started to get credit, we could afford
more capital-intensive businesses.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, I appreciate your time so much. This has just been eye-opening for me and a great...
No, but it's out there if you want to take advantage of it.
Yeah, yeah. One last thing I'd like to just ask is, I'd love to, when we have a speaker like this at YPO, we'd like to donate to some place in your honor. And I just wondered if you had a charity that you think of. You're so giving. I should also quickly mention the hospital that you've built and expanded in Surrey. I live in South Surrey. My daughter was at a sporting event in Burnaby, and she was running around and cut her foot open pretty badly in a ditch, like on some glass. And someone says, you have to go to the new Jimmy Pattison Hospital in Surrey. It's the best. So we drove out there, and the service was unbelievable. You're so giving. But we'd like to give something to somebody or some charity on your behalf. And who would you pick and why?
Well, we'll go talk to Maureen.
Okay.
Because she's in charge of all the giving.
Perfect. We will do that for sure. I haven't met her yet, but I'd like to meet her before.
Okay. Well, she's here this morning.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Thank you so much again.
Okay. Well, thank you
really appreciate
for
it.
the opportunity. And if there's anything that you think I can be helpful to with YPO, I would be happy to do it.
That's wonderful. It's a great way to end it. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, come on and say hello to Marie. You didn't meet her coming in this morning? Okay.